whole new teen book spotlight. So for this week, we are taking a look at some of our new books, and I can promise you this, we have been getting a ton of new books in. So we have a 6 we're going to look at, but again, there's more, so we'll talk about that at the end. So let's get started. We have a great variety this week, so maybe a little something for everyone. So our first one is 1,000 Sisters. So this is by Elizabeth Wayne. If you've read anything by her, she's a great historical fiction author. She's probably best known for Codename Verity, if you've read that amazing World War II inspired book. But this is an adventure with her into nonfiction. And it's something that I had never even known before I read this book. I was so glad I read this. So, leading up to the start of World War II, flying and aviation was an acceptable hobby for women in the Soviet Union, which is now known as Russia, while in many other places, including the United States, it wasn't. Women were not really allowed to be involved, anything having to do with flying, aviation, airplanes, anything like that. Because of this, when the war started, women in the Soviet Union were allowed to join the Air Force, and they could actually be pilots in the military and serve in combat. And they would fight in action, making them the only women to have fought in military combat in modern history at this time. So this is a story about 3 female regiments led by Marina Raskova, and everything that they went through, because even though it was accepted, they still dealt with a lot. And everyone who's involved in this, not everyone's going to walk away from the war. This book does not shy away from hard topics, especially since the Soviet Union wasn't kind to its own people. But you will walk away with having this incredible newfound respect for the women who joined the war effort, and you will know more about this piece of history that is very rarely shared. This is 1,000 Sisters. Another nonfiction one, and this one I could not put down. As horrible and as gruesome as the topic is, this is one that is a must read. This is From a Whisper to a Rallying Cry. So it is June 19th, 1982 in Detroit. Vincent Chen, who is Asian American, is out celebrating his bachelor party when he gets into a fight with a white man and his stepson, their names being Ronald and Michael. This fight ends with Ronald and Michael beating Vincent to death with a baseball bat. The two were then arrested, but they were not charged with murder. Instead, they were charged with manslaughter, which made it seem like the whole thing was an accident. Then, they were not even sent to jail. Their punishment was they had to pay a $3,000 fine, and then they had to be on probation for a couple years. That was it. The outrage that was felt, especially in the Asian American community, led this situation to being the first federal civil rights case in American history involving an Asian American. Unfortunately, it took till 1982 for this to happen, but this is filled with first-person accounts from many points of view, from family and friends, lawyers, the defendants, eyewitnesses, as well as there's photos, newspaper articles, there's transcripts from television, news shows. You will be asking yourself the question that should have been asked in the first place. Was the murder of Vincent Chen a hate crime? And if it was, how did all of this happen? Highly recommended. You will feel as though you were right there through all of the events, and you will be given an insight into an event which you probably didn't even know happened in our country, but ends up defining a lot of other things that come after. From a Whisper to a Rallying Cry. My Contrary Mary. So, we had the Janie's trilogy, so now there's a whole new trilogy started from this trio of amazing authors. It is 1560 in Paris, and our story is set at the royal court of King Henry and Catherine de' Medici. So, also living there is 17-year-old Mary, Queen of Scots, who is engaged to Francis, who is going to be King of France someday. They have been engaged since they were 5 years old, and they have been best friends the whole time since that moment. But Mary has this epic secret she needs to be kept, an incredible secret. And Francis knows about it, and he's going to do anything he can do to help her. Mary has the ability to be a shapeshifter, and she can turn herself into a mouse, but this ability is punishable by death in France. When King Henry makes a suspicious and timely end, though, Mary and Francis find themselves on the throne, and everything becomes way more dangerous overnight, including what people are willing to do to find out their secrets in order to get more power for themselves. The first in a trilogy, if you like your history to be filled with romance, fantasy, friendship, drama, then this is one you need to check out, My Contrary Mary. The Cost of Knowing. So, 16-year-old Alex lives with his younger brother Isaiah and his aunt in a good neighborhood in Chicago after their parents were killed in a car accident. Ever since that tragic event, though, Alex gained some sort of power, if you want to call it that. He doesn't really think it's great, but he has this ability that whenever he touches an object or even a person, he has visions of what is going to happen to them in the future. How far he can see depends on how long he has contact with that person or thing. So, Alex doesn't want to have this ability. He doesn't want to know what is going to happen with people. So he tries to avoid as much physical contact and interaction as possible, and that starts to make his relationships difficult with his brothers and even his girlfriend. But he thinks it's for the better. It is when he accidentally touches Isaiah, though, and he sees his impending death, which is like in a number of days, he realizes two things. One, he wants to try and stop it, and two, he has not been the best brother. So Alex sets out to try to be a better brother while also, trying to figure out what he can do to stop what he can see happening in the future. But then he also learns that Isaiah has some secrets of his own while facing his own fears. Amazing character development, there's non-stop plot. If you like your realistic stories with a touch of magical realism, this is a must-read. If you read Slay by Brittany Morris, you know how amazing that book was. This book is so good, The Cost of Knowing. Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard. This is the person who gave us the Red Queen series. She has a brand new book out. So our story takes place in a fantasy land called Alward, where there are these things called spindles. These are doors that connect Alward to other lands, and they need to remain closed in order for protection, especially as some of the lands on the other side of these doors are not as friendly as others. When the spindles start to become opened, though, someone needs to close them. But it can't just be any person going up to these spindles. It needs to be someone who is from the ancient bloodline of Kor, and that's when Coraine comes in. She is the only one, because she is the last person left in this bloodline, who can put all of this to an end. But she's hesitant to embrace her heritage, and it will not be a very easy quest. So, she is joined by a squire, an immortal, an assassin, an ancient sorceress, a bounty hunter, and a forger. And this group sets off with the task of stopping a powerful and evil enemy with an army unlike anything they have ever seen. If you love fantasies that are set in other lands, have non-stop action, include a large cast of characters, each with their own secrets, and this has an epic battle of good versus evil, then this is the book you need to read next, Realmbreaker. And our last one for this week is Almost American Girl. So this graphic novel memoir is all about Chuna, who is 14 years old at the start of the book, living in Seoul, South Korea, and wasn't a typical teenager and had an awesome relationship with her single mom. When her mom announces that they are going on vacation, Chuna is super excited because they have been on amazing vacations in the past, including to Hawaii and Singapore. But when her mom announces they're going to Alabama, Chuna doesn't really know what to make of this. When they arrive there, Chuna's even more shocked to find out that this is not a vacation. They are actually moving there, and her mother is marrying this guy named Mr. Kim, who also has his own kids. Not only faced with all of this epic life-changing news, she now finds herself trying to navigate this new place, new culture, new language, new school, all while facing bullying from her classmates and even her new extended family, and trying to figure out where she belongs. Seeing her experience through her eyes, you will be along for the journey with Chuna, whose English name is Robin, as she moves as a teenager from Seoul to Alabama and eventually Virginia. Almost American Girl. So these are just 6 of the new books that we have here at the library. I can promise you this, we do have more. I looked this morning, there's way more new books out on the book display in the teen section than there were yesterday. So if you're looking for something new and epic to read, come on down, check out one of these 6, or make sure you take a look at that new book display and you will find something awesome and amazing to read. I hope you tune back next week when we have a whole new teen book spotlight, and have a great week.